This is the kind of old figure that has stood up very well and resisted the test of time so far. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from X Kurogane Studio. For today, I have an old figure review, and I have specifically chosen this Sonico figure for today's highlight is partially because I wanted to introduce you guys to this figure brand where you may not have heard of because they don't make many figures nowadays, even though they are still very well alive and active, right? They announce like 5 or 6 figures a year at most. It feels that way to me. Yes, we are talking about Orchid Seed, where today they have changed their name to Tuberosa Plus, right? It is the same company, they changed their name, and they have been re-releasing a lot of their older figures nowadays. I'm not sure what is going on, like why are not they making more new products? Why keep re-releasing old stuff? Is it because it is not a priority for them? Like they are also involved in making games in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. They are not only making figures, or their figure part of the company is not doing that well. I'm not too sure, even though they make excellent figures. And this one over here is my main highlight for today. We are looking at Orchid Seed 1x6 scale Super Sonico cheerleader version. This came out so many years ago that I don't remember the release date. I'll just put it on screen over here after checking on MFC later. And if I remembered correctly, this was around 12,000 yen and was never re-released, I think. This is a huge figure for a 1x6 scale. A 1x6 scale that is this big is uncommon, except we take a look at third-party resin figures where they actually make them pretty big at 1x6. At 1x6 scale, this Super Sonico is 33 centimeters tall all the way to the top of her pom-poms over here. But if we are talking about head height, exactly 30 centimeters, this is huge. This feels more like a 1x5.5 rather than 1x6 scale. There are actually figure brands out there making 1x5.5 figures for some reason. Because, you know, anime girls, anime characters, they are quite short. Because Asians are short in general. Like the girls, the women here in general, they are like 5 feet plus maximum. So when you translate that into scale figures in general, yeah, they tend to be shorter or smaller than the scale figures of 1x6 scale male characters from Marvel or DC Comics, you know, those Hot Toys 1x6 scale action figures. Meanwhile, of Sonico, which is not a tall character to begin with, 30 centimeters, that is not 1x6 anymore, it's bigger than that. So this is very nice, a nice bonus, right? Not complaining over here. Just that I find it interesting that 1x6 scale genuine PVC figures that is this big is not common anymore. This is one of my 3 Sonico figures in my collection, and my favorite one among the 3. All 3 are made by Orchid Seed. As you can see, I think of Orchid Seed quite highly when it comes to soft-core edgy figures, right? There are other brands like Wing or Max Factory who has made Sonico figures, so many choices out there. So before I proceed, a quick mention about the box. This is what it's like, ordinary cardboard box, nothing too special. And yeah, this is not the kind of box that will protect the figure, but at the same time, it does not feel like this figure has any very fragile parts to protect, right? Other than the headphones over here, of course. Now, speaking of contents in the box over here, this is where the value is even better at 12,000 yen or so. We have a pair of extra hands. Yes, a pair of extra hands where you can swap it out in case you want to display Sonico just jumping around being happy rather than being a cheerleader. Then yes, you can remove these pom-poms and display her with her two hands over here. Also, on top of that, these stockings over here, they are actually removable. They can be casted off, but as a result of these extra options being included, the cast off mechanism, you have a very ugly seam line along the sides of these stockings over here. I think you can't avoid that at this point. That is what you get if you want to remove the stockings, having that as an option. On top of that, is this figure cast offable? Most, if not all, Sonico figures are cast offable. Most, not all. So this one, yes, she is cast offable. Only her skirt and her top over here. So yes, you can display her bare-chested with those big melons in their full glory if that is what you prefer. That is an option with this figure. Unfortunately, you can't remove her panso, but that is the case for every Sonico figure. Why is that the case? The reason is very simple. Sonico is more of an edgy character rather than H. Yeah, the 6 alphabet H word, which I don't want to mention on YouTube. So with edgy, you get to see the top, not the bottom. H, you get to see it all, including the meow meow down there, right? So I don't know much about Super Sonico other than her being a mascot character for this game company Nitro Plus, I think. Yeah, and there was an anime adaptation many years ago which was hot garbage. Don't waste your time watching it. I bought the figure simply because I like the character design, and this is quite the excellent value given what you're getting. And moving on to the sculpting, this is not a very detailed figure, but everything that Orchid Seed is supposed to get it right, they got it right over here. No complaints on the sculpting at all. The face sculpt and everything is like 100% the same as the product pictures they show us during the pre-order times. Just that, yeah, their cast-off mechanism over here, I need to repeat it again because it bugs me a little bit. Yeah, this seam line on the left and right of her leg over here is... it is not very nice, but at the same time, you can always remove it and you don't have to look at it again. Yeah, so that is not a bad thing, I suppose. However, the sculpting is not 100% perfect either. If I scrutinize this figure a little bit closer, especially on the back of the figure, on the hair over here, then you can see some mold lines, and these are the kind of flaws that are already present on day one the figure was being made. It is not affected by the age of the figure. Just because you display it on a shelf for 10 years, it does not mean the sculpt will get any worse. This kind of unpolished molds on the hair strands are along the lines of B-tier figure companies out there, which is to say perfectly average. Does it bother me? Not too much, because it is at the back of the figure, not the front. The figure looks perfectly fine from the front. Poorly done molds on the hair strands is quite common even today. This is not just a 10-year ago thing, right? Moving on to the paintwork, this is where I noticed something really interesting that I can't remember whether it was the case 10 years ago. This figure, if you look at the box art over here, right? The blue color is very vibrant, very strong blue color. But when you look at the figure over here, it does look like the blue color paint has faded, isn't it? Because a lot of time has passed. But I can't remember whether this Sonico figure looked exactly like on the box over here when she was new, or the blue color paint was indeed different from what was being promised in the product pictures over here. I just can't remember, it was so long ago. But if you were to ask me, I prefer this faded look over this very intense saturated blue color look, because this faded look is more in line with the rest of the color scheme of Super Sonico. Like, her hair color is like a very bleached, a very light shade of pink color, not hot pink, saturated pink. And the pom-poms over here, the yellow, is not too intense either. So it feels like the faded blue color look over here, it actually blends in better with the rest of the color scheme of the Sonico figure. And even if this is the result of paint fading after many years, I like the look of it actually. But if there is paint fading taking place on this figure, it would apply to the entire figure, not just the blue color parts. It shouldn't be that specific. So I think this was indeed the color I got when I received the figure brand new back then a few years ago. This is the major difference I noted between the official product pictures and the final product pictures. It is like the colors are almost completely different, but not in a bad way. As for the rest of the figure, well, it is hard to judge objectively on how good the paintwork is after so many years, because things can happen to the surface of a figure after displaying her for so long. But overall, this figure is just as good as I remembered when she was brand new. Like, there is not much wrong over here. The sailor straps over here, the red and blue and white straps over here, as you can see, these are the kind of things that won't change over the years. They are very precisely done on her uniform. Well, this is a big figure, should be easier to do than a 1x7 or 1x8 scale figure. One more impressive thing about this Sonico figure is that compared to many other edgy figure brands out there that are customable, after all these years, there are no paint transfer between her skirt and around her hip, her thighs over here. When you remove the parts and put back on, paint scratch happens and you get paint transfer. Other than that, there are not much other flaws to point out other than the hair strands not looking polished at the back. A quick mention about the base over here. Single metal rod. Was it single or two? No, two metal rods I think in a foot peg. there shouldn't be only one. But I'm not unplugging the figure from the base because the attachment between this figure and the base is very tight, and I don't want to pull it out and put it back in so many times. I'm afraid that I might break something, you know. Yes, the metal rod won't break, but what if the plastic hole surrounding the metal pack breaks instead, right? So I don't want to touch the metal foot pack over there, but this is a very sturdy figure. She will wobble a bit, of course, when you shake the figure because she is standing on one leg, but this is so sturdy that she does not wobble much at the same time, and after so many years, the figure has not leaned amazing. However, I have mixed feelings about the base over here, like because it is translucent and it looks like the color of the very protein that comes out of your reproductive system. Because of that color and the translucency over here, you can see this trapezoidal or triangular pattern underneath, which is required because the figure is so heavy and they need something to support underneath the base. But because the base is translucent, you'll see this triangular pattern over here. I'm not sure if I like it. I think I would prefer the base to be opaque so that I can't see those triangular patterns from above, but that is just me, by the way. Some people will like this look just for the extra detail. This is the kind of old figure that has stood up very well and resisted the test of time so far. Not much. No, I don't see any yellowing or color fading on mine, other than the blue color looking a little bit different from the box art. But the skin color is pretty much almost the same as she was brand new back then. Yeah, there is still a slight pink color tinge to it. So if the skin has turned yellow, I would have noticed it. So overall, this figure has done really well after all these years. And if you come across one that is kind of cheap, pre-owned, or like new condition in Mandarake, in Mercari, then it might be a nice idea to pick one up as long as you like Super Sonico. So I hope today's review is informative enough, and if you found this review helpful, please give this video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content every week. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Goodbye.